today I'd like to talk about letting go of judgments and labels. It's something I've noticed a lot with coaching where people get stuck professionally, personally, romantically, because someone externally has told them something negative about who they are. I remember when I first started my coaching business online, I had shared with a good friend who is a spiritual leader and teacher about what I was thinking of naming my website. And I felt called to put my name on my website. That was something I prayed about for a long time. I mean, a really long time, a year at least, that I had been contemplating this. And one of the comments when I shared this with a friend, she said, well, some people are about, what they offer, and they offer it at a level that is about them. So it was a subtle, backhanded kind of comment that to me sounded like, well, it's about you. Your business is about you. And then she went on to say about how she wanted to create something that was from a soul level, that was offered, from a soul level. And so I kind of interpreted all that and took that in, probably too much. And I noticed how it hindered my own ability just to move forward. This is a place also where a lot of people tend to get stuck when they're creating their own business. And for me, it was the fear of being egoic and it coming from that place. I wanted to call it Sura Center, as in your divine center, teaching people how to live from their divine center, because that's what Sura means. So for me, it had several meanings on why I wanted to call it that. I also wanted it to be a center of peace where people could come and, feel like they were part of a sanctuary, where they could just really rest and relax. So that was my intention behind it. But something I have noticed is in coaching people is that because they're afraid of being called certain things, whether it's a narcissist or egoic or a bitch, it actually hinders them from being in their full power and energy because they're so afraid of being perceived that way. I remember once I was coaching someone on just their inner space and being able to take up a level of inner grounded space. And she said that to her, it felt selfish just to, inhabit her body, inhabit her space. And so there's these subtle ideas in the back of our mind that if we operate in a certain way in the world, that we're going to be perceived as bad, or that we'll be perceived negatively. So somebody might say something, oh, you're controlling. And now we put all our energy into not being that way, to kind of prove to not be that way. And so we don't knock things down. We don't do what we really need to do because we have that fear. So what ends up happening is that somebody else projects, their judgment into your space, and then you take that judgment and you keep self-projecting it towards yourself. So you take that on now, and you allow that to limit you. And I know that sometimes when people have had negative feedback from loved ones or other people, that it even affects them energetically. They'll say things like, I feel it in my heart. Like they can't, ever since, some traumatic fight or explosion happened with a family member, now it's like all of a sudden they feel this weight in their chest, or they feel a weight in their shoulders. They feel a tightness in their stomach. And it's been with them ever since those words were expressed, because sometimes when people express energy out of fear or pain, they kind of throw energy at the same time. Like words are like sticks and stones. They can kind of penetrate us, and they don't really leave. So I think it's important to recognize the imprints and the subtlety of when someone has given us really harsh or even subtle negative feedback, how we process that and how we choose to be with it. And here are some tools that I suggest that can help you move past anything where you feel afraid of being called something or perceived as something, to try this, which is first to take on that label. So let's say somebody called you high maintenance. So just take on that label of being high maintenance or too problematic or too much. And so just take that on and just see what it feels like to take it on. I like this because you realize what not a big deal it is. That it really doesn't mean anything. I mean, it's kind of senseless when you really take it on. And then try taking it off, actually consciously disowning that label, that judgment, that projection, just consciously letting it go and all the energy that comes with that. And notice what it's like to disown it, to disown that projection. And you might, when you go through that, feel how freeing it is to disown it. And to ask yourself these questions. Is it really true? Is this keeping me from my full power and expression? What do I know about myself? What do I really know about myself? Deep underneath. So those are some questions that you can ask yourself. I highly recommend going through a visualization process of just relaxing your body. I can walk you through it. Relaxing your body, sitting with that fear, with that label, really sitting with it, because I think when you bring something like that into your full awareness, it just dissipates. It has no more power when you bring it forward. Sometimes those fears are in the background and they're kind of controlling or guiding what's happening from the background because we held on to that experience. So bringing it forward, really sitting with it, taking it on, noticing what that's like. So what? Not a big deal. I mean, whatever comes up for you, that's true. And then consciously disowning it and asking yourself, is it true? Is it keeping me from being myself? Is it keeping me from my full expression, my power? And what do I know about who I am? So this practice is about letting go of the need to be validated by other people, to be seen, to be heard, to be understood, which is what we all crave at the end of the day. But sometimes people around us can't always provide that space. Sometimes they say things out of hurt. Sometimes they say things because they feel threatened. Sometimes they say things because it's an unconscious moment. But yet we take that on and we carry it with us energetically, spiritually. It weighs on us. And so that's what I'd like you to look at, to free your own self so that you can move forward, is if there's anything that's holding you back, that you're afraid of being perceived as or being called something negative, selfish, egoic, whatever that might mean. I think there's a lot of confusion between spirituality, what's considered spiritual and what's considered egoic. And sometimes what people call egoic is actually your spiritual energy and vice versa. So we have to make those distinctions within ourselves and know for ourselves what's true. And what I love about meditation and what it can offer you is the ability to go deep inside, to know yourself internally, to know who you are, so that you can release the external need for validation or acceptance. I mean, we love acceptance, feels so good. Doesn't always happen, especially as we're moving forward, as we're stepping into our power, stepping onto our true path. Sometimes when we do that, it triggers people. When you start, acting in a new way that isn't dependent on the people that are around you, it's threatening. So you can trigger people just by being more of yourself. And oftentimes healers or coaches, practitioners, just by nature of who you are, you will trigger people. You'll bring up their deeper unconscious, their patterns, especially when you live the way you choose to live consciously. It might make people look at the way that they live and what they're doing. And so if it kind of invalidates the way they're living, they might project something negative towards you. And something to know as a healer is that you will trigger people, you will make people uncomfortable. And that's part of the gift of learning the skill of healing, which is holding that space, bringing up the deeper, darker stuff, while also inviting presence and awareness, not taking on the projections, the unconscious behaviors, the negativity, and judgments from others. So it's a real skill that you're learning, which is not to take on, even energetically, kind of the silent projections or judgments of others, especially if you're very sensitive and you can empathically feel what people are thinking and emoting. And so that's the vital skill, is learning not to take something on. Now, there's a difference between people criticizing and judging you and people that are lovingly giving you feedback. And the people that truly love you are looking out for your best interest. They're people that have a pure heart and spirit. They're purely intended. And you'll know when they're offering you feedback because it feels like it's coming from a loving place. It feels grounded. It feels safe. It doesn't feel like an attack. And in those cases, especially when we ask for someone's reflection or we want to receive some feedback, in those cases, yes, you might want to take that in, right? And listen to what your loved one really has to say and share, especially if you're feeling stuck. So I hope this was helpful. It's important to learn that skill of releasing people's projections and judgments. That's really what allows us to feel more comfortable and safe in being ourselves and speaking our truth and living the way we really want to live, without fear of what other people think, without fear of what other people are going to say or do. I think it's funny because I think one of the fears that people have is that they'll say about you, like, who do you think you are? Who are you to do that? And I was thinking, like, wouldn't that be such a compliment at the end of the day if people said that about you? Like, who do you think you are? And it's just, it's something where you're just allowing yourself to go outside the boundaries or the limitations of, how people kind of want to put others in their place. Like, you should go this way or you should do this, and the expectations that are put upon you, and releasing all those expectations and judgments.